Let's go straight to the Middle East, where Lise Doucette is standing by.
Yes, you join us here in Damascus, in the heart of the old city. We're just off the square in front of the Umayyad Mosque. It's the Grand Mosque of Damascus. It's one of the oldest and largest mosques in the world, a place of worship. And there was an extraordinary scene here when the new military commander, who is in charge of the main Islamist groups which took power here on Sunday, Abu Muhammad al-Jolani, went and prayed in the Umayyad Mosque for the first time, and so many Syrians saw it as a symbol of the new start. And it is an extraordinary moment in Syria, but yet it is a moment of everyday kind of rituals. We've been in this area for the last hour, and people are cleaning up the area, and there's this lightness in the air. People really feel that this heavy weight, the 50-year repressive rule of the Assad family has been lifted, and they're daring to hope that this could be an exciting new chapter. And they're watching. This is the beginning of that third. It's only the third day, and a new government, an interim government, is being put into place. Yesterday, it was announced that there'd be a caretaker prime minister who has the same man, Mohammed al-Bashir, who had headed the administration, the rebel administration of the main group, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, in the northwest corner of Syria in Idlib. Now he has the task of forging a new administration for all of Syria. There are some positive signs as this new order takes shape, but Syrians are also worried that the new cabinet is completely dominated by Islamists, despite messaging from the new leaders that this would be an inclusive government. This would be a new Syria for all of Syria. This is one of the most diverse countries in the Middle East, with multiple Christian and Muslim sects. And you can see it here in the old city, all the different quarters, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, they're all here, and they want to believe they have a space now as Syria embarks on this new chapter. But let's just get a sense of the mood here on the ground. My colleague Lena Sinjab has been here this morning.
Yes, good morning, Liz. We are here also in the Umayyad Square. Yes, Liz. We are also here in the old city of Damascus, in the heart of the old bazaar, and behind me also the Umayyad Square. And the scene is incredible because many people have gathered around, and the shops, the market, the bazaar is opening up, and people are taking initiatives on their own to start helping out with the city. I have some young men who started this cleaning the streets because they feel that the new administration has not started yet, and they don't want to see their city basically not clean, so they've taken this initiative by themselves. And I'm going now to talk to some of them as we are in the street. So can you please introduce yourself?
My name is Mohammed Saad. And we're here with a volunteering team called Mart. We're here to clean the Mosque Square, and after 10 minutes also we're going inside the Umayyad Mosque and we're going to clean the square inside. And this is the first step of many other steps to help rebuild this country and rebuild our youth. Here with the team, we just finished cleaning the square, and now we will enter the Umayyad Mosque.
And why you've started this initiative at this moment? Have you been working on this before?
Our team was working a long time ago. He started this many initiatives a long time ago, but we started on this initiative in this particular time because the governorate are not operating in a very good way. I mean, we can see the governorate employees in the streets working, but they're not enough to rebuild this country. This is time for unity. We need the entire population of Syria to work all together.
And I can see that this is a big team of men and women. You're all young. Can you introduce yourself as well?
My name is Deir Abu Halawe. Now we are here to improve that we can build our country with our hands. And as we are young people in university, we are working here so hard to prove that Syria is going to be so strong in the future. And thank you so much for being here in our country.
Are you worried at all about anything?
No, because we can we can do that, and we did a lot of things that it was hard, and we can also do a lot of things which will make our country better and better, inshallah.
So this is basically here the mood. These are just like, this is the future of Syria. These are the young generation of Syria who've taken the initiative in their own hand. And this is only one example in one corner of the city. So imagine the situation across the country. There are lots of people who are trying to offer themselves out and about to help, to participate, to contribute, and also to show how important for them these kind of historical areas to be in charge of also their own country and their own future.
Yes, Lena, it is this extraordinary moment where it's about the very little everyday details of life, like cleaning the streets. And we heard so well from these volunteers about how that matters so much to Syrians, their pride in their own country, including this exquisite traditional architecture. But it's also about the very big vision about where Syria is heading now. And I know you've been speaking to many Syrians about their concerns that despite the messaging about that the new leadership would look for an inclusive kind of government, a government for all Syrians, that so far they haven't taken a very clear step in that direction.
Well, yes, Liz, I mean, it's the early days of how things are moving, but some Syrians have been surprised by the leader of the opposition, Muhammad al-Julani, appointing an interim government that is basically of one color. This interim government with a small cabinet are from the Salvation Front. They are all Islamist. Some of the opposition came out to criticize and say they haven't been consulted, they haven't been included. We can't see that there are women or any other minority groups represented in this government, and the voices have started to rise and in criticism about this, but at the same time they're saying that this is only interim government. It's only going to run for 3 months to make sure that there is a soft handover of power, handover of duties, get the services running in the country. But I think the most important thing here is that people are not afraid of speaking out anymore. People are not afraid of criticizing, of saying that we don't like this and we want this. So they are voicing their concerns. And one example to give, for example, the state television that was 3 days ago, providing propaganda for the Assad regime, now it is talking about what the opposition want and even changed the flag. And at some point, there were lots of Islamic chanting, lots of Quranic verses on the television. And after criticism, that was already immediately stopped because they've respected people's views and that this is not representative of the whole country. I think people are really carefully watching how the rebels are working on the ground. From what we've witnessed and what people have seen and told us, they're very disciplined. They are very irrespective of people's rights on the ground. There are some mobs coming in, like there was a case of a woman who somebody came to her and told her you have to put the scarves up, and then the rebels came and pushed them away from the neighborhood and said you don't have rights to interfere in people's lives. So we have to wait and give them time to watch how they're going to operate and how to move forward, preserving this mosaic of the Syrian society.
Alina Sinjab also reporting here from the old city of Damascus. And I think it is important to underline, as she did, that this is just day 3. Many are highlighting the fact that this has been what is a bloodless transition, that people often feared that those in the opposition, both the peaceful opposition, the armed opposition, they were both for the last decade and a half in Syria, that there would be like a violent kind of transition, that Syria would be plunged into more bloodshed. And yet on Sunday was this sudden reversal of the rebel fighters and civil society groups streaming into this capital, Damascus, and taking over. And also that some members, including the Prime Minister of the old order, remaining in place to try to have the smoothest handover possible, although of course as we've been hearing, there's going to be massive challenges. So many rebel groups, so many hopes of Syrians, and they are watching every move of what is called the interim government, set to be in place, it said, for until March of next year. And of course, Syria will be looking to its neighbours. We've already had those hundreds of airstrikes by Syria. We've also had moves by Turkish forces, Turkish-backed militia in the north. but it is early days, and so much is at stake here. We can also now bring in, I understand, someone who's been following very closely a very important part of the transition in Syria, and that will be respect for human rights as Syria emerges from what was regarded as one of the most brutal states with a machinery of torture, as we've been seeing from those heartbreaking scenes but also hopeful scenes of people going into the prisons looking for their loved ones, and some of them finding them and others going away disappointed. So what will be, how kind of a new Syria will emerge? Ben Saul is the UN rapporteur for human rights and joins us now. Welcome to BBC News.
Good morning.
And I know it is still, as we've been emphasizing, it's still very early days, but we've heard from the new rebel leadership. They've announced an amnesty, but they've also said there will be accountability they've got a list, a number one list as they're calling it, members of the old regime. We've seen revenge killings already. What is your assessment, even though it is early days, about how they're dealing with this issue?
It's certainly a positive sign in principle that the new government is committed to bringing to justice the perpetrators of such large-scale violence over recent years. War crimes, crimes against humanity, torture, disappearances, summary executions, all done on a vast scale. I mean, remember the Assad regime also used chemical weapons, barrel bombs indiscriminately against civilian areas. So the scale of the violations was quite extraordinary and was one of the reasons why there was a revolt against the government in the first place. Of course, what needs to happen is that justice must be blind. It must bring to account anybody who committed violations. And we know that includes HTS itself and other rebel forces, armed groups, terrorist groups who committed very serious violations of their own. So a process to be credible needs to be independent, impartial, and to bring to justice everybody accused of violations.
Perhaps not surprising in these heady days of victory. The focus has been on emptying the prisons, of which the machinery of torture of the old regime. But we've also heard a protest in Idlib, where Abu Muhammad al-Jalani's forces were in control, and where many were put in prison there because of his authoritarian rule. And those prisons are not being opened. And do you see any sign that they would be able and willing to deal with what's happening in their own backyard?
Well, that's right. And of course, those forces have been accused of thousands of enforced disappearances, imprisonment, as you mentioned, torture, summary executions. So these violations have been committed on all sides in this very brutal conflict over many years. And if the new authorities are genuine about making a new start for Syria, then they have to look in their own backyard. I mean, the difficulty is, of course, that Syria does not have a well-functioning justice system. I mean, the judges, the courts were captured by the Assad regime, by the Baathists for many decades. So a whole new justice system has to be built from the ground up. We don't know what it's going to look like because, of course, there's the possibility that Islamic law is going to be brought into Syria, and we don't know whether that would ensure fair trials according to international human rights standards. There are, of course, other possibilities for international assistance on justice. So for many years now, the United Nations mechanism on Syria has been collecting and documenting evidence of war crimes on all sides. There's the possibility of bringing some form of international or hybrid tribunal to assist the Syrian people to bring to justice people. There should be a truth and justice and reconciliation process to deal with the truth about what happened in the past, to bring justice to victims and their families. And there's also even the possibility of some kind of international criminal court jurisdiction to the extent that crimes of displacement were committed across borders when millions of Syrians were forced to flee their homes.
I'm sure it'll be a busy time for you, Ben Saul, for the people working with you, and for many of the world's the best of the world's international courts, and as you mentioned that it said that there's tons of evidence to try leading members of the regime, including President Assad himself, and there's already been efforts, and there's already been convictions in outside courts, including in Germany, of members of President Assad's military, and now there is a chance for that to be pursued both outside the country as well as at some point inside Syria. Thank you, Ben Saul, the UN Rapporteur on Human Rights, for joining this morning as we report here from Damascus, from the heart of the old city. You can see it seems like a very normal scene in this extraordinary part of the old city of Damascus as people go on with their daily lives, but this is really, you can feel it. Everyone is sort of saying hello to us, welcoming us to Syria, talking about how it feels so much better now. But there's going to have to be more than clean streets. They're going to want to see a whole new kind of Syria emerging from this. It will take time, but it has to first head in the right direction. We're going to continue our reporting from Syria, but for now I'm going to hand you back to Lauren in London.
Elise Doucette and the team out there, thank you very much indeed.